Good evening, everyone. Today is March the 11th, and the Planning Commission meeting as scheduled is going to proceed. Christy, can we get the roll, please?
You sure can. Mr. Kushner? Ms. Miles?
Here.
Mr. Surratt?
Here.
Mr. Gainier?
Here.
Ms. Wobick? Mr. Brown?
Here.
And Mr. Carey.
Here.
All right.
Thank you. For everyone who has not been to one of these meetings before, I need to let everybody know the meeting is recorded. And so when all of us speak, we have to do into our microphones, and when the time for public comment occurs, you'll be going up to the podium to do the same. And when you do that, you'll identify yourself with your name and your address and so forth, and do an affirmation about the truthfulness of your testimony to the commission. We do have a lot of correspondence from you folks that we got last month regarding this case, many people in the neighborhood, and the new items that we also received in communication. We will start with Brooke with the presentation of the first case whenever you're ready to go. And, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I almost forgot the minutes because they weren't sitting here in front of me. Anyways, does anyone have comments about the minutes from the last meeting or changes that need to be made? Seeing none, the minutes are approved as recorded, and when I get a copy, I'll sign it. Thank you.
All of you, if you intend to speak on this case, please stand. Okay. Everybody? Okay. All of you, please affirm that you will testify to the truth. Yes. Affirm.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, this is project number 263, which was continued at our February 11th Planning Commission meeting. They're requesting a revised conditional use permit in order to allow the existing gas station to continue operations under new ownership and the conversion of the existing mechanic shop to a convenience store. And the subject property is located northwest of the Lee and Essex Road intersection. The property is zoned C2X multiple use and is surrounded by other businesses also zoned C2X multiple use to its north, east, and south, and abuts a single-family residential district zoned A single family to its west. The applicant acquired the Marathon gasoline station property in January of 2026 and plans to operate as Race Fuel gasoline station and install new gas pumps. The applicant proposes to remove the vehicle repair bays and convert the structure to a retail convenience store with a new ADA compliant restroom. The existing garage doors will be removed and the existing building will undergo a total interior renovation with new tiles, glazing, lights, equipment, coolers, and countertops, as well as new electric, plumbing, and HVAC systems. They also plan to construct a new dumpster enclosure, install new asphalt pavement, restripe the parking area, add new bicycle racks, and install new landscaping. The interior and exterior of the building, as well as the canopy, will be freshly painted, and they will install a new surveillance security system and new interior and exterior LED lighting. The business will have a total of 6 full-time employees and will operate from 6 a.m. until 11 p.m. daily. They plan to always have 2 employees working on site, serving an expected maximum of about 15 customers at any given time. A part-time employee will clean the building and exterior site between shifts. And on traffic, the Institute of Transportation Engineers' schedule of common trip generation rates estimates that convenience stores with gas pumps typically generate about 6 more vehicles during morning peak hours and 5 more vehicles during afternoon peak hours than gasoline stations without a retail component. City GIS analysis of the annual average daily traffic in the Lee Essex neighborhood demonstrates a Lee Road street volume of between 7,000 and 8,000 vehicles and an Essex Road street volume of about 700. Similar surrounding street volumes are between 200 and 400, and this information is being shared with the administration for their review due to traffic issues being outside of the Planning Commission's purview. And on the next slide, we have our GIS analyst and transportation planner, Ken Bernard, that can speak to average speed.
Hello. So yeah, we looked at pulled the average speed data for that area, and what we see is an average speed of about 17 miles an hour for Essex Road, which is obviously far below the speed limit, and that is in line with the surrounding roads as well. To note, the police department did do a speed study last year and found similar results as well. So the urban SDK data that we pulled this from matches what the police saw. We don't really see speeding as any more of an issue on this street as any other surrounding streets. Looking at volume data, again, as Brooke mentioned, we see about 700 people is the estimate for that particular segment. That is very similar to the numbers that the police department got. They had about 610, so in the same ballpark. Again, that is about 300 to 500 more than the surrounding streets. But again, if we're talking about that 5 to 6 cars during the peak times, in our opinion, it's not going to make that big of a difference to the neighborhood from a volume standpoint. So this is looking at the peak hour breakdown of what we see, and we see kind of in that that early morning has that highest peak of about close to 60 vehicles per hour, and it drops off throughout the rest of the day. But again, during that kind of normal sun up to sundown is really the highest, and as you'd sort of imagine, that's when the most folks are out, particularly before and after work.
And these are the standards under which a conditional use permit can be issued. The applicant plans to continue the operation of the existing gasoline station, as well as improving the appearance of the on-site structure and landscaping. The on-site auto repair station is a non-conforming use, and the applicant plans to convert the auto repair station to a convenience store, making the property increasingly code compliant. The site has operated as a gasoline station for multiple decades and will remain as is with updated facilities and renovations. The proposed convenience store is a permitted use in the C2X multiple use district, and the new surveillance camera system will allow the applicant to closely monitor all on-site behavior and investigate any potential incidents. The applicant also plans to maintain the existing 6-foot white vinyl fence at the rear property line abutting residences for screening. The gas station as proposed continues the existing footprint, so there are no expected disruptions to pedestrian traffic or future development. No significant changes to the site layout are being proposed. This property has been used as an automobile service station and or gasoline station since at least the 1970s, and utilities, access roads, and other facilities are in place as this is a continuation of an existing use. The applicant is upgrading the electricity, plumbing, and HVAC systems. Ingress and egress patterns will largely continue as they have been, and the use is not expected to result in a significant increase in traffic congestion on nearby public streets. There is minimal potential for future hardship resulting from the continuation of this gasoline station and conversion of the repair bays to a convenience store. And staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve the request for revision to their conditional use permit to allow the on-site gas station and conversion of the existing mechanic shop to a convenience store with the following conditions. This use is to not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other properties in the immediate vicinity or create a nuisance for adjacent properties. The applicant is to work with city staff to resolve any complaints from neighbors. The only services permitted to be performed on a vehicle are the dispensing of fuel, fuel, oil, air, and windshield wiper fluid. The location, display, or storage of rental trailers, automobiles, trucks, or other rental equipment on the premises is prohibited. No merchandise except fuel and oil may be stored or displayed outside of the building. Other than being serviced at pump islands, no vehicles are to be parked between the pump and the setback line and the property lines on either intersecting streets. A vehicle parked in violation is to be presumed to have parked with the knowledge and consent of the operator of the gas station. No junk, inoperative, or unlicensed vehicles are to be permitted to remain anywhere outside on the property for more than 48 hours. The applicant is to submit a landscaping and screening plan that is to be reviewed and approved by the zoning administrator, and the dumpster is to be screened as required by section 1166-10A. Parking lots are to be striped, and bicycle parking is to be maintained in accordance with the approved site plan, and cars are to park in an orderly manner as shown on the approved plan. The applicant is to obtain all required design review approvals for any signage and exterior changes to the building from the Architectural Board of Review, and all required construction and installation of the uses to be completed within 18 months of Planning Commission approval.
Thank you, Brooke. And Ken, thank you for the report that you prepared based on our request to have this done. Next up, I'd like to ask the applicant to take the podium. If the applicant or your representative would like to speak. Up at the podium, and please make sure that the microphone is near your mouth, and identify yourself and where you live.
Richard Conti, I'm an attorney. I live in Pepper Pike, 31200 Gates Mills Boulevard, Pepper Pike.
Thank you, and I believe I saw you take the affirmation.
Yes.
Okay, and I'll ask, because of the large number of people who are probably going to talk, to try to be as concise as possible with your remarks.
I'm going to try to, because we're here for three things: traffic, noise, and safety. And from your slide that you had up here, that's not going to be here anymore. All those cars that are there, they won't be there. Brian Barrett had a very, very successful and well-regarded mechanic shop. Everybody loved him. There's no doubt about it. And he was successful. But it was a mechanic shop. It was a busy mechanic shop because he did good work. My kids went to him. They spoke very highly when they heard I was involved with this. But he had cars there that were there overnight and stayed until they could be worked on.
Sir,
Yes,
stay toward the microphone and look at us, please.
I'm sorry. The traffic was hard to get in and out of. I've been there many times. There were cars getting gas. There were cars on the parking lot. There were cars getting service. There were people waiting for their cars. There were tow trucks coming in. There were cars, auto parts stores. They were delivering auto parts during the day. It was very busy, hard to get in. Sometimes it was impossible when the trucks were backing up. It's not going to be that like that. You're going to have a couple cars an hour coming to use the store and some using the gas pumps, and they're going to leave. Then you go to noise. You're not going to have the noise. Mechanic shop is very loud. You're not going to have that. People are not going to be allowed to linger on the property. Then the next part would be safety. This is be a very safe location. My client uses state-of-the-art equipment to monitor the property. He's helped numerous police stations because he's got approximately 28 gas stations that he helps the police. They come to him because his camera systems are so well maintained and top of the line. And he's helped solve many crimes. And that helps everybody. My client has a reputation in your neighborhood. He owns 2 other stores, and he's got a very good reputation. He maintains his stores, top quality, hires good staff, and makes sure everything is number one. And if anybody has any questions.
If we have any questions, we'll call you back up.
Thank you.
Could take a seat at this point.
Sure.
Are there any questions for staff on the presentation that we've seen so far? Jessica?
Just clarification that from the prior meeting that we had, there was no changes to the conditions that were offered in the staff's recommendations.
We removed one of the recommendations that we discussed having, or prohibiting left turns or right turns on Essex Road. Oh, okay. Then never mind. We just discussed it, but we didn't add it. So no, they're all the same.
Okay.
Yeah, that was something we talked about in the last meeting and in a meeting I had planning for this meeting tonight. Anyone else? Comments, questions?
Mr. Chair.
Down here.
Yeah, question for staff. On the traffic report, it says that the convenience stores with gasoline pumps typically generate about 6 more vehicles during AM peak hours and 5 more during PM hours. Is that like total vehicles per day would be 11 then? Is that how that works? Or is it, 5 vehicles per hour in the AM hours? What exactly does that mean?
Yeah, 5 additional vehicles during those peak hours.
During the entire set of peak hours? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Anyone else have a question? Shanir?
So I know it states that Essex Road has a significantly higher volume in general than nearby streets. Do you have any idea why that might be?
We believe it is because people exiting using the traffic light that's at the eastern end of Essex Road has a much safer and easier way to exit onto Lee Road. We don't see much traffic if you looked at that crossing over onto Silsby the other way, so we believe it's to get north and south on Lee Road more safely.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, Judy.
This isn't quite framed fully, but if we know, based upon the numbers, that there's anywhere from 2 to 4 times the volume over the course of a day, right? Right? Is that over the course of a day?
Are you meaning compared to the other streets?
Yes, compared to the other streets.
Yes.
And the speed isn't that much higher. But I think what I'm struggling with is, at the last meeting, we had testimony from residents saying that whether it was actual or a perception, that there was a lot more speeding. So it's clear that there's a lot more volume. But it seems like the traffic burden on the street, maybe because it's a pass-through, cut-through, is significantly greater. Is there anything that was looked at that could mitigate that? Either the volume, I understand that unless there are children around, 17 miles an hour would be acceptable. If there are children and pets, even 17 miles an hour can seem fast. But is there any discussion about how to mitigate that? I know it's outside maybe the specifics of what the project that's before us right now, but the issue is still there. The concern is still there.
I think that's something we certainly talked about, whether you're limiting left or right hand turns out of those convenience stores. What's interesting is that where that speed study from the police was further west on the street. So my initial thought was, when I got that volume data, was that it was an inflated number because of it being close, because the volume number took into consideration that whole stretch. But really seeing that, no, there's that same volume throughout that whole stretch, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think we have enough information right now to say whether prohibiting a left turn or right turn is going to make that any different.
Is there anything that's been done on other streets in the city that has tamped down either the volume or controlled it, restricted it in a way, or the...
No, there's no other traffic calming devices. I truly believe that it's a little bit of the convenience store access and having that light to make it safer for the crossing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? I'll make one comment, not really a question, but just, I have empathy for the situation on Essex Road. I lived on Berkshire for many years, and it's a cut-through street like yours, and occasionally a speeding car would come down there. And I think the report that Ken put together kind of demonstrates when your street is created in such a way that it becomes a connector to get, off a main drag like that on Lee Road, just like my former street was, it's difficult and it's frustrating at times when somebody blows through there like that. I was, I don't want to say I was surprised, but I thought the data that you came up was kind of affirming in terms of overall speed and its relationship with the other streets there. So again, I think the data is very helpful for figuring out the situation. And that really wasn't a question. I apologize. Anyways, if no one else would like to speak, I'm going to invite applicants to prepare now to come up to the podium. It looks like we might have a few more people than we had initially. So I'll remind anybody who wants to speak that you will identify yourself like the applicant's representative did and speak clearly into the microphone and address your comments to us. And in view of the number of people who want to make remarks, I'm going to ask that you try to keep your remarks down to 3-4 minutes so that, and to help each other out here so that everybody who wants to speak does get a chance to address the commission. And if you have not, when you go up there, acknowledge that you made the affirmation, we'll ask you to do so when you reach the podium. And why don't we start at this end of the room, if you want to start first in the front row there, sir.
Good evening. Joel Forker, 3161 Essex Road, and I earlier affirmed. Good to go? Okay. Again, good evening, everybody. I'm up here speaking on behalf of not just myself, but look at the room. Many residents from Essex Road, and many who are also not present tonight, but participated with us in these discussions. I want to thank all of you for your time, city staff, police officers. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate it. I think we all know why we're here, and we understand how the site is changing. Our goals tonight are really to share our concerns, again, around this change of use and ensure that we as residents really have the transparency to the process and the requirements for improving the site. And further, we just want to ensure that there can be enforceable conditions to protect nearby residents from nuisances like increased traffic, noise, light pollution, and litter, and that those can be implemented. So my comments tonight will try to briefly outline our 3 areas of concern and then conclude with what we hope are reasonable requests to the city in the interest of our community and our safety. First and foremost, we're obviously concerned about the impact to traffic. We know Essex is a residential street. There's families with children and pets. We should be able to enjoy our homes, be able to participate in activities outside without having to worry about speeding cars coming down the street. I was surprised by the numbers that I saw. Truthfully, I think if those are the numbers all around, they're low by about 10 miles per hour at least, probably 15. And then you factor in how much more traffic comes up and down our street, and then you understand why we feel like we have a real problem. We can't, as residents, we all sit there in our homes, in our yards, on our front porches, and we see these vehicles speeding by every day up and down the street. So we function like a cut-through street. And I think when nearby businesses operate for long hours, that means more people are cutting through the street, which leads to more speeding, which leads to more risk for us. I think we'll see a lot of additional volume from the race fuel. They're pricing their gas at least 20 to 30 cents below the Shell and the Cleveland market average. It frequently has the cheapest gas in Cleveland, cheaper than the Costco. So we're concerned that that's going to bring more traffic down our street and increase that number from 700 to the thousands. I think when we were here last month, we outlined in detail the events that occurred. I think the Planning Commission's familiar with those. We've had several occurrences of cars speeding and losing control and striking property, trees, vehicles. We had a neighbor who tragically lost her dog in a hit and run. After that, and we're grateful, the police department stationed an officer on our street for 2 weeks. 24 speeders were ticketed. Many more were definitely pulled over and released. We counted the sirens. We're really grateful to Chief Britton and his officers for that response. To keep the momentum going after that, we signed a city-initiated petition for a traffic study and turned that back in. We handwrote or typed, in our own words, a letter to the former administration signed by over 50 members of our community on our street, hand-delivered it to City Hall. Neither of those got a response. That was the last thing we heard. No change to long-term safety on our street. This is a real impact for us. Neighbors now use their backyards instead of their front yards for gardening and gathering. People have moved office spaces and bedrooms to the back of the house because of the noise. Residents have been nearly hit crossing the street, especially up at the Lee and Essex intersection. And some of us are even considering moving because of the volume, speed, and stress caused by the traffic. We understand that traffic is outside the purview of the Planning Commission. We feel like there's a direct connection here, so we appreciate your questions on the study and for considering this. We're respectfully asking the city to commit to more traffic calming on Essex. We see the speed monitor. That's a good start, but we would love more. We would like a clear plan and a timeline to be shared with the residents, and we want to participate in the dialogue. We'd like to see if we could get more temporary measures put in place soon and permanent measures ideally within the calendar year. Secondly, we're concerned about just the overall quality of life for the homes on Essex, especially those close to the site, and the overall direction of Cleveland Heights' future business development plans. So we're gonna have a second gas station with a convenience store directly next to each other, and that kind of setup is really not conducive to a quiet retail use and a quiet neighborhood. At the Shell right now, there's constant turnover, engines idling, headlights, loud horns, loud music, shouting, and late night activity. I will just remark that I never heard one noise from Brian's Marathon and the mechanic work that happened there, but we hear noise every day in the summer, especially from the convenience store at the Shell. Look beyond that. More notably, there have been 33 police incidents at the Shell since 2020. Including accidents, thefts, trespassing, drugs, criminal menacing, and more. Half of those incidents occurred after 6 p.m., so the old Marathon would have already been closed by that point. Now, we understand we can't necessarily assume that what happens at the Shell will happen at the race fuel, but how are we as neighbors to know or feel confident that it will be any different? So we respectfully request that the commission please require enforceable conditions on hours, delivery windows including fuel tanker refills, lighting limits and shielding to prevent glare, and clear standards for noise and other nuisance impacts such as litter, which constantly blows into our yards from the Shell that we have to pick up. We naturally feel like a second comparable business could double this problem. And then overall, we feel like a holistic view of the city's vision should be underpinning all aspects of our entire local government decisions. Otherwise, we could see the entire street, Lee Road I'm speaking of, gradually shift to higher density of businesses that are really not appropriate to be near all of these wonderful residential neighborhoods. I think the Cedar Lee District is one of, if not the gem of the city. Just look at the music hop, the Happy 5K, the Dog Days of Summer, the Candy Crawl. We want families to come down to this road and this neighborhood, and we don't want it to be more unsafe. So we hope that the city is carefully planning out its future and putting plans in place that draw the types of businesses and incentivize the types of businesses that we want for a healthy and diverse community in the long term, and one that reflects our shared values and prioritizes safety and well-being of our residents. So we respectfully request some sort of information on how we as citizens and residents of Essex Road can participate in the planning, or at least gain more information about what the city has on its long-term roadmap to remain a healthy and sustainable suburb where people of all walks of life want to live. Third and lastly, and probably most briefly, our final concern focuses on the transparency and completeness of the record in the process. Ahead of the February meeting, many residents, myself included, did not receive a notice in the mail of what was on the agenda. And the public packet had not included basic materials needed for an informed review, such as a complete dimensional site plan and a clear explanation of what's being reviewed under what code pathway. We do have residents on our street that can understand that information and want that information. I might not understand it all, but I do want it, and there's folks on our street that do. We were also told that some information was exchanged verbally or by email with the applicant, but we can't review that information as residents before a vote. We find that to be unfair, and it undermines our trust in this process. So it would help us to have clarity on the process and more transparency and communication between the city and the residents, and that's what we're respectfully asking for with this concern. So to recap and wrap up, we would like to respectfully request, in conjunction with this conditional use permit vote, for traffic calming measures on Essex Road, for the commission to consider the hours that the gas station and convenience store are allowed to operate, and to partner with the residents to better understand the longer-term vision of the Cedar Lee District and Cleveland Heights as a whole, as well as improving the transparency and partnership with residents on the process code and record. So thank you again, everyone, for your time tonight. And thank you to all of my wonderful neighbors here. We've really rallied together to show our concern and our desire to work together with the city to ensure that our voices are being respectfully heard and leading to a positive outcome for Cleveland Heights. I'm proud of all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, coming along this first row, is there anybody there who would like to speak? And I'll start with the second row there with you, ma'am, at the end. Blue jacket? No, anybody in the second row? You, sir? Nope. How about the third row on this side? Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Erin Flanagan. I'm at 3091 Essex Road.
Have you taken?
I have taken the affirmation.
Thank you.
And I do affirm. Thank you. I just want to bring up one thing that Joel's very comprehensive list did not mention, but does relate to the record. And I would like this commission to really think about whether or not the record is complete here. Because we have a slide, a PDF slide of boxes that have been ticked, results of boxes that have been ticked. You know, is this going to be a nuisance? No, we don't think so. Okay, but there's no evidence that backs that up. We don't know the reasoning of the decisions that have been made. They're just a list of ticked boxes, and so that doesn't comply with Ohio Revised Code. And also, I think that the committee should, or the commission should, think or maybe inquire to the applicant about any kind of environmental certificates, because you're talking about a property that has been, according to the applicant's attorney, in some sort of gasoline or petrol business for decades, and that gets into the soil, and that requires remediation, and it's going to go from an open air, usually in the summer, definitely open air, sometimes in the winter too, I know he's here, an open air auto repair to a closed environment food service. And so I would really think that Cleveland Heights would be very curious as to whether or not that meets the environmental standards as required by the state of Ohio. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the, back row there?
My name's Lou Radovojevich. I live on Middlehurst Road. You can hear me?
Yes, you could bring the microphone up if you'd like.
How's that? It's all I wanted to share is more observations. I think there's that fourth point that's not discussed, or the fourth issue is light pollution. I fear for this, if I lived on that street, that would be my number one concern, is going from a place that was always dark at marathons and now doubling it. With these two gas stations. I mean, I live on Coventry Village. If you want to see a good example, go to Coventry and Mayfield. You got two gas stations there. Every morning I drive past it and it glows. So that's definitely something for any of these neighbors. That's going to change their experience in their backyards or their front porches. And I don't have the answer for it, but that's something that is definitely legitimate. The other thing I just want to touch on is someone who always frequents Lee Road is Dobama Theater. I look at that as one of our anchors. And when I go and frequent a restaurant and walk to Dobama and then come back to one of the restaurants or for a nightcap, I'm concerned of having 2 back-to-back gas stations and the traffic flow for the pedestrians. The safety issue is not crime in my book. The safety issue is the traffic, people coming and going outside of that parking lot. So that again, just think about it, figure out how you're going to handle that. But those are 2 concerns that I have.
Thank you. Anyone else in the back row on this side? Miss, come on up.
Hello. Hi, my name is Kayla Keith. I live on 11512 St. Mark, but I work at the race fuel location on Cedar Road at 12404 Cedar Road. I've worked with the applicant for many years. He's very, all of his locations are very clean. Like, he's very active into listening to the community and hearing their concerns and everything like that. Like, whenever somebody has an opinion on what we should do with our stores, like, we take that into a lot of consideration and everything. We like to be in a clean space, so we make sure that, like, our store is very clean. My coworker, she couldn't be here, but she's worked at that location for 25 years. She worked with Pete before his, and she made a statement. So she says, "Hello, good evening, City Council members and Cedar Lee residents. I'm Marcella Lee. Some of you may know me. I have been a part of this community and have worked in this community for over 23 years. Many of you have grown up here and raised families here. I hope that I can help relieve some of your fears and anxieties. A little over 3 years ago, I was right where you guys are now. My hope is that you will know, my hope is that you will know 2294, my hope is that you will know the Lee Road location to be turned into a place that is an asset to the community, not an eyesore. Also a place of convenience to the community. If that doesn't help relieve some of your fears and anxiety, come and visit me at Cedar Fairmount location at 12404 Cedar Road and see for yourself what can be for your Cedar Lee location. Trust that they will exceed your expectations. Thank you for your attention in this matter. Sincerely yours, Marcella Lee."
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else over on this side in the audience who'd like to address the commission? All right, seeing nobody who wants to speak further, any questions from the commission? Did I hear somebody?
I didn't swear.
Well, okay, well, please come up.
Yeah, be very quick. I'm Lynn
Hey,
O'Brien.
ma'am, can you affirm that you will testify to the truth?
Yes, and I live on 3095 Essex Road. And Joel, as he told you, spoke for us, which is why we didn't speak. But I just want to say, this is not about whether race fuel is a bad place or a good place, because I don't think that that's what we're trying to project. We're just concerned as residents about the quality of life on our street because we've lived there. And I don't know where the data came from for the speeding. I mean, I live on that street and I'm home all day and there are cars speeding by. I mean, so there's a disconnect, and I just, I don't know what the right answer is, but there's definitely a disconnect. I walk on that street several times. I walk up to Lee Road exit. I walk from my house, which is between Stratford and Lee, 5 times to go up to the yoga center. It's really dangerous. The intersection is dangerous, and I'm one of those people who, I can't tell you, the police are here. I wish you were there when I was crossing. The number of times that I have come so close to getting hit because it's like I'm invisible. People take the right turn and the pedestrian crossing is on at the same time. And I think it's just because there's so much traffic up there. So that area is really dangerous for pedestrians to start with, but I live on Essex Road and I live on that section, and I know we have that speed sign going only one way, but there is speeding. There is speeding, or we wouldn't even be here. Right. That's right. I mean, this, it's nothing against race fuel, but we want safety on our street. And so that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Chief?
I guess I'm requesting if I may have a couple minutes to listen to everybody.
We need you over here, Chief.
I just want to make sure forever. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. I'm Chief Britton, Chief of Police, and not only am I a proud member, 30-year member of the department, I've also lived here for 30 years. I'm also proud to say that I live in the area of Lee and Essex, and I have very intimate knowledge of the neighborhood and the traffic. And I want you to know that I hear your concerns and I recognize them. I share the same concerns, not only as a resident, but as the chief of police. But to be fair, this is a challenge that's presented to the city and traffic safety enforcement, not just to Lee and Essex, but we share the same challenges in many other parts of the city. And I assure everybody that, you know, of course, I hear what you're saying and we take them seriously, and that we're doing all we can in our power to cover the entire city and address these issues. What's the great thing about this city that I know personally working here is the community and building that collaboration with business owners, exchanging ideas, coming up with ways to address these concerns and work together to come up with ideas to ensure the safety of everybody, right? So, and going back to what had Ken brought up, like I said, I did, you know, once this was brought to my attention, the concerns were raised, yes, I did put a speed sign down on Essex for my own personal knowledge, because I wanted to see, you know, the numbers, and they correlate with Ken. Yeah, do people speed on Essex? I'm not denying that. But the similar pattern, going back to why is Essex, do we see a inflated number of cars? My personal observations, like our friend back here, I'm on Lee Road almost every day, walking around the neighborhood, so I see it. You know, I think in terms of society today, from my personal observations, based upon my experience, driving patterns have changed. You know, we have distractions with cell phones, mobile devices, high-tech cars, all these other distractions that are going on. And I think the key element to improving traffic safety in general overall is education and awareness, right? I wasn't surprised, you know, with the data I reviewed with Ken, I wasn't surprised by it. From what I know on the study, again, I recognize there are speeders and it does happen, and I personally see it, but the average speed is at the posted speed limit. But it's not any different from any other speed study that I've done in my term here with other streets. So again, I want to assure you as a resident and the police chief, I hear your concerns and I share the same. You know, another challenge we faced over the years is, and it's not alone the Cleveland Heights, is, you know, in terms of, you're talking about traffic safety, enforcement, nuisances, noise complaints. You know, staffing and law enforcement has been a challenge over the years for everybody. But I'm glad to say, and you know, I'm glad I brought him. Gentleman over in the corner there, I had him come as Commander Montgomery. We were able to get some more staffing in place to address some of these concerns, and you'll see him out on Lee Road. Stop by and say hi to him, you know, but we're all here to work together to address these concerns. And I assure you, I'm here to listen and do what we can to help out. So thank you. All right.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else in the audience who would like to address the commission before I close that part of the meeting? Ma'am, you were just up there.
Oh, something came up.
Okay, if you can briefly come up again and make another comment, I'll entertain it.
I would just like to ask for a copy of the traffic study. We were told that we would get it at the February 11th meeting, and it's what decisions are being made on, and just the basis of law. We should have access to be able to study that to see how it was done. Thank you.
I don't think I see anybody else signaling me that they want to speak. I'm going to ask my fellow commissioners if we have any questions for the applicant. Nothing further? Down this way? Okay. The commission is also in possession, I think I might have mentioned this at the beginning of the meeting, but I want to reiterate it, all the emailed and mailed correspondence and so forth. So we've heard a lot of commentary on this case and so forth over the last month and a half. And we appreciate both your testimony this evening and the trouble a lot of the residents went to put their letters together and send them to us. It's very helpful as part of our decision-making process. At this point, I'm going to ask for a motion on the project.
I'll move for adopting project number 26-03, Race Fuel at 2294 Lee Road, for the conditional use permit to allow the gas station to continue with the conversion of the mechanic shop to the convenience store, and with the 12 staff recommendations.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Is there a second? Do we have any discussion before we actually do the roll? Anybody want to make any comments? Jessica, I'll go with you first.
Yeah, go ahead, Jessica.
I appreciate everyone's coming out, supporting your community as a whole, as well as to the applicant and the city staff across the board. As Planning Commission, we look at use and enjoyment and access, and cannot control human behavior, no matter how much we'd love to. And we look at what's reasonable. And if, to me, we work through reason and we can't speculate and have capricious opinions. So I feel comfortable, based on what I've heard from the presentation from staff, to support this.
Thank you. Bob?
Yeah, I certainly sympathize with the residents. There's cut-through traffic on lots of residential streets in Cleveland Heights. And of course, when you're near Lee Road, you're going to get that. I live on Hampshire between Coventry and Superior. We get a lot of cut-through traffic. People want to avoid the traffic lights on Mayfield and on Coventry. Not a lot you can do about that. I mean, we're near major streets. Lee Road's always going to be a major street. It's full of businesses that generate lots of traffic, and that's the way it is. And our side streets that are near those major streets are going to get traffic. Now, I realize from a zoning point of view, this seems pretty easy, but it's not necessarily from the resident's point of view. From a zoning point of view, a retail store is a permitted use here. The auto repair garage was not. It was a conditional use and needed special approval because auto repair garages, at least potentially generate noise and fumes and things like that. So here we're getting a proposal to replace a use that was a conditional use with a permitted use. So from a zoning point of view, it seems to make perfect sense. And I think it makes sense, but I certainly understand from the resident's point of view, there is more traffic coming to a retail store than there is to an auto repair garage. And I know that's one of the issues here. I realize that this gas station has always had two curb cuts, one on Lee Road, which is the major street, and one on Essex, which is the residential street. I don't know what the history of that is in terms of any consideration to not having a curb cut on the Essex Road side. The the curb cut or the driveway that's on the Lee Road side is already big enough for 2 cars, a car coming in and out. I didn't hear any discussion of that, but we want to be sensitive here to the residents' concerns. Coming back to the fact that from a zoning point of view, you have a use which is kind of a conditional use being replaced by a permitted use, which makes it pretty straightforward from a zoning point of view. But we realize that there's more traffic coming to a convenience store than there is to an auto repair garage. So I just want to say we get it. We all live here. We all live in Cleveland Heights, and we experience some of the same issues on our streets. I mean, that's one of the things we like about Cleveland Heights. It is a mixed-use place. There's businesses and apartments and single-family homes and two-family homes all mixed together, and it does make for a more diverse and vibrant place. It also creates some problems, traffic-wise.
Matt, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah. So just according to chapter 1151.01 of the zoning code, when we evaluate a conditional use permit, our job is to ensure its consistency with the intent and objectives with the particular district in which it's located. And the code tells us what the intent of this district is. So this is a C2X district, which says that its purpose is continued operation of mixed-use neighborhoods to provide for dense mixed uses along main thoroughfares and concentrate mixed-use buildings and promote and encourage pedestrian activity. To me, a convenience store could conceivably be a pedestrian focused business. A pedestrian might come in off the sidewalk and use that, whereas an auto repair shop, I think it's extremely unlikely that a pedestrian would use that. So as has been said by my fellow commissioners already, I think that this change brings the use more in line with the intent of the zoning code than the current existing legal nonconforming use does. I'm also pretty heartened by the excellent staff report that was provided to us showing that the change in traffic is going to be pretty small. So those 6 more vehicles during AM peak hours and 5 more vehicles during PM hours represent a tiny increase in the percentage increase in the amount of traffic. So I understand that there are issues with the existing traffic, but I don't think that the provision of this convenience store is going to materially change the conditions of the traffic that exist on the street.
Ken? Oh, Shanir?
Yeah, I don't want to belabor the point about this not being under our purview. I think everyone stated that very clearly. But I did have a point of order, just a question. Are we able to create a motion outside of this particular case to put this in front of the folks that might be better suited for this, maybe like the Transportation and Mobility Committee?
Well, if you're asking for a motion or to change the conditions of this conditional use permit?
Not this conditional use permit, separate too, just so that we're making sure that the residents' voices are heard and that we're putting it in front of people outside of this case.
Justin, would that be appropriate here, or would that be something that we would just task you with afterwards?
Like a separate task. We have to vote on.
Yeah.
Got it.
Application.
Yeah, I think, yeah, so we'd do it separately.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Judy, did you want to say something?
I think I'm going to echo. Oh, I never turn on. I want to echo what my fellow commissioner just said. I think the residents, even though this might not be relevant to this particular application, in this venue, they're asking for the city to be responsive to the concerns they've raised. However that needs to happen, it needs to happen. So I think everybody, well, I'm going to speak for myself. It's a good faith application, and we only have so much authority to impact it. We've already offered up a motion with a second, but the issues that have been expressed by the residents aren't going anywhere. However, the numbers support volume or speed, you're heard. And I don't know how the action is going to go forward, but it must.
Mm-hmm.
I'm repeating myself to address their issues, so thank you for raising it. I concur.
Ken?
I'll just join my colleagues in thanking the residents for bringing these concerns. I want to validate your experience with the traffic on your street. I too live on a street that often is a cut through, and we're doing what we can within our authority. And I think you coming out and showing this, we have our law enforcement here to hearing your concerns as well. So we, as a city, I think we'll take this your concern seriously. I just want to address two quick things. One, I know that there was talk about the light pollution. I just wanted to note that in staff recommendation 9, landscaping and screening plans are part of this, so that will be taken into consideration as this moves forward. And then the last point is, where I live is actually near the other Cleveland Heights location of Race Fuel, and we've had no complaints as neighbors. And actually, it's a place that my kids and their friends frequent to go get candy and a beverage. So I feel that they run a good business. It feels safe. I don't think it's done anything to contribute to an already crazy Cedar Fairmount intersection too. If there are issues, we hope that you've learned that there are processes to report those, and then we can revisit this conditional use if these conditions are violated. So know that is something that still can happen if there is something that does happen later.
I'm going to echo Vice Chair Surratt's comment. I also live near the station in the Cedar Fairmont district and have watched it for the last couple of years. It's been open and it has been a good addition and improvement over what we had before, which was a similar type operation. The other thing I just want to make a comment on, and one of you testified that you want to know that these conditions that we put on the permits that have to be met on an ongoing basis into the future, those are enforceable. And we've had holders of conditional use permits have to come back in front of us when there have been complaints and a lot of issues involving police calls and so forth, so that if it becomes a public nuisance or a danger to people's safety and so forth, it will be dealt with. I can assure you of that. And the last thing I want to say is just a personal comment. Now that I'm the chair, people who know me, I'm going on the warpath about pedestrian safety because I don't think our crosswalks are adequate and I don't think people pay enough attention to pedestrians. And I'm trying to do as much as I can during my tenure in this role to push the city. It gets beyond the purview of what this commission does at times, but what we do with intersection designs, crosswalks, sidewalks, and things that we need to truly live up to our reputation as a walkable, bicycleable community with safe streets. And so we're with you on this, and we appreciate everything that you've brought to us. And I think we've listened and heard you, and we're going to do everything we can to ensure that this applicant and the approval that we're about to make will not harm you to the best of our ability. So thank you.
Mr. Chair, I just want to say I agree with you that often we have motorists who don't observe the crosswalks, even with flashing lights.
Yeah.
I walk my dog every day down to Coventry. There are a couple crosswalks there, and they're flashing lights. And when I cross, I make sure that I am defensively walking because I know that some cars are going to go right through the crosswalk. It's like, wait, you see those flashing lights? Yeah. You see me and the dog? But so, it's something we have to deal with, and it's not easy.
Yes, it certainly isn't. Thank you, Bob. If there are no further comments, I think we need to take a vote on the motion.
Mr. Kushner?
Yes.
Ms. Miles?
Yes.
Mr. Surratt?
Yes.
Mr. Gainier?
Yes.
Ms. Wolbeck?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Carey?
Yes.
Seeing the motion is voted unanimously, this permit is approved as proposed. Thank you very much. We have some additional business we're going to probably talk about, but you're all welcome to stay or leave if you choose to do so.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for coming here and speaking up.
I am just amazed at the way some of the motorists just don't observe the crosswalk, even though they're flashing lights.
I was on a dark horse, so I walked from that side, and now I've walked from the other side coming up over.
So what? If I just cross.
So, yeah.
I mean, because they don't, I'm so like, hey, look, guys, this is a crosswalk, flashing lights. I'm totally with you.
Karen, how long do you think the additional information you wanted to go over will take?
There's a few slides. I can do it quickly if you'd like, and then bring back more information, or if you want me to hold it till next month, there's no time-sensitive issues.
30 minutes be adequate?
Yes, I would think so.
Yeah, everybody's good with doing that.
Right. Right. So, thank you. This is the point where we're planning staff just wanted to give you a few updates on some activities that the planning department's been working on. Most of this information, actually all of this information was shared with the council's planning and development committee. We held it from last month because of the length of the meeting last time, so we just wanted to take a minute and review it. And obviously we can go through this in more detail as we go forward with the various projects. So we just wanted to let you know that we are undertaking a zoning code update, and that this is a all-inclusive, really in-depth zoning code update. We're working with ZoneCo. This is kind of a outline of what their intended work schedule will look like. So there's an initial project initiation and kickoff. They're going to calibrate, kind of look at draft solutions. They're going to work with focus groups, look at best practices, review all of our documents to see what's actually happening in the city, including looking at what type of variance requests we get, as well as what kind of conditional use requests we're getting. So they're looking at how we're functioning using our zoning code. And then they'll do some analysis and come back with some suggestions on code. We are going to be working with what we're calling a technical advisory group. So we're asking people from different disciplines to meet with us and the zoning companies, consultants a few times a year, just to take a look at things and to try to think, yes, you know, the zoning code is how we develop our community. And so we want to honor the parts of our community that we want to preserve, but at the same time, we want to be sure that we're preparing for the future and the way development and people live change as time goes forward. So this is just kind of the work draft. Obviously you can't see all that, but it was just to show you that there's multiple steps in each of those 4 categories that I just reviewed with you. We're also working with, as had happened, SignCode to look at just our zoning code regulations. Our zoning code regulations have been in woeful need of being reviewed for many, many years. We want to make sure that the sign regulations recognize that we're trying to be a pedestrian-oriented commercial districts, and most of our signs, if you look in our commercial districts, are lovely big signs up really high where you can see if you're in a vehicle, but not necessarily if you're walking on the sidewalk. So we want to address that and make it so that if you're a business owner, you don't have to call us and say, what am I allowed to do? Because they're right now very confused, and Xavier does a lot of talking with folks about how they can implement a sign change and get through ABR and the zoning process. We are also looking at accessory dwelling units. As you know, we did a study with the county, which there was a presentation made here last December, or well, not 2 Decembers ago. We did a design competition that was a really nice way to introduce what ADUs are to the community, help start the conversation and educate folks about what they are or can be. We did review this, and then we've been holding community engagements. Both Brooke and Xavier have been out in the community trying to meet people and talk to them about potential zoning language and what do you see that you have concerns about, and what, you know, do you understand what an ADU is? We reviewed this with the Planning and Development Committee actually Monday night, and we were asked to do some additional community engagement before any actual zoning code legislation will get put forward. So we will be holding another event, and then I think we'll be seeing that brought forward. So we are thinking that the sign regulations excuse me, and ADUs will be brought forth separate from the larger overall zoning code regulation, just because there's been extensive work done on both of those already before we started with the current zoning. We're also having our landscape regulations looked at by a landscape architect firm and somebody that also knows zoning, because we want to assure that we have good landscape code that makes sense. Currently, our code's rather complicated to review, and even landscape architects sometimes are scratching their heads. So we need to make it so that it reflects our values but is doable. And then the places of worship, as you know, it was previously introduced and withdrawn, and we're having our zoning consultants review what was done up to date, and so that'll probably come through with the larger zoning code amendments. Sorry, so this is, again, just reviewing the zoning code updates. So, again, there's diagnosis, calibrate, and codify. So as we have open houses and interviews, we'll be making that known to the public, and you'll know what we're doing and what we're talking about. We do want to talk, we want them to focus in on a few hot topics if you want. For example, we know that non-conforming uses, or for example, a single family house in a multifamily district is an issue that's come up. So we want them to look at some of those hot topics. So if any of you have a topic that you think we really should be looking at, please feel free to email myself or Eric, or of course Brooke or Xavier, or just email planning@clevelandheights.gov. That's a good place for anybody to email, planning@clevelandheights.gov. It's an easy address to remember. And you can suggest that, and we can then figure out whether that should be included in the hot topic areas. So also, there's many planning and development initiatives that are going on. We're doing a housing needs assessment, and that's really so that we have some good hard data about what's going on in Cleveland Heights, what our needs are, and then how do we move this forward. So the timing of this is going to work out nicely, that it should be done just before we're drafting any zoning code regulation changes, so that it should be able to help inform any zoning changes we might need in terms of housing needs. But this is looking at what type of housing he has, affordable housing, the whole gamut. So as we heard last year, and I'll remind you, we're doing a gateway and wayfinding signage. We worked with the County Planning Commission, who did do an initial report, and they did, I think, make a presentation to this committee. We are now working with Land Studio to look at contextualizing that plan. We want to be sure that we're talking with our commercial districts, so the local special improvement districts, as well as the merchants groups that are forming both on Noble Road and Taylor Road, to talk about wayfinding and the city's signage packages and how that can help people get around and find what they need to find. So once we get through that contextualization with Land Studio, then we will be doing a request for a proposal for design and fabrication, and then we'll have to phase that signage into the city. But the intent is really to get through, hopefully, the design and fabrication phase and have some of that initial wayfinding and gateway signage started. So in the Noble and South Taylor business districts, there has been a request for a proposal issued, and responses are coming in. And this is to look at public art. And this is nicely timed because we had just completed a Noble Road and Taylor Road streetscape project. So we had already started talking about areas that could benefit from public art. So that will be shared, of course, with the consultants on locations and where public art possibly can go. Coventry is also has plans for public art and some ARPA dollars, as does Cedar Lee. So we'll be seeing more of this as it goes on. We know that there's opportunities on both Noble and Taylor because of that streetscape planning. And there's a corner park in the Noble area called the Roanoke Park, and there's a couple places in it that would make sense. There's already a mural along the side of it, but the initial plan that was reviewed with the public had some gateways, and it's quite possible that that could be public art. So neighborhood planning is something, as you know, we've been trying to get through. We're working on developing a framework of indexes or metrics that we could use in all of our neighborhoods. So the concept was that, we should have some standards that no matter what neighborhood you live in, that's a standard you should expect from Cleveland Heights. So we're trying to get indexes that make sense and that are measurable and that are available, of course, because as you know, there's lots of things we might like to measure, but we don't have the means of measuring them. And so we're also working with the communications department on neighborhood strategies in our merchants associations. As I said, the Noble Road corridor has had streetscape design. There's a market study that's been completed as part of that. There has been design on an input on the Noble Roanoke Park, and we're in the process of drafting that final Noble corridor plan, and that should be coming out soon. And Taylor Road, there's some streetscape designs that have been completed, and in North Coverdale, they're drafting a neighborhood plan. The Parks, Recreation, and Open Space, or PROS, as you know, has been going on, and so we're probably about getting ready to wind that down. The target is for May for that to be completed, and so this is exciting because this will be an overarching park plan for all of our parks and open space. So we're eager to keep this going. Roanoke Park is the park that is the Noble area, because we did talk about it as we were doing the streetscaping. There was a preliminary plan drawn up, and we did apply for a small grant from the Akron-Cleveland Realtors Association and got a little bit of money to help implement that. And that with some block grant money, we feel we'll be able to start the process on that park. Yeah, here we go. So you can see the park in the lower left corner is a picture, and there's volunteers have done a wonderful job of doing some landscaping in the park, and the neighbors have been using it, but that pathway is made of stepping stones and is really not the best for in a public park. So that's going to be one of the first key things we want to improve is getting a good solid sidewalk across that park area. So you can see the plan that's over there. So planning staff, in conjunction with our Parks and Recreation Director, will be working and moving this forward. And again, this was reviewed during our work with the streetscape. So, and I've reviewed it a couple times with the Noble neighbors in their meetings. So, but we'll continue to work with them as well as the balance of the community on this. So active transportation, Lucky Ken, he's still here. So we heard a lot about active transportation, and actually there's been a lot of plans that just recently were done. And so now the challenge is getting some of that work implemented. And so you can see that's up there, the different plans and activities that have been started, and we'll be hearing more about those as they move forward, and there's some implementation going on. Again, this is just an outline of the different projects and trying to do some wayfinding. The last one that I probably should make mention of is the Blanche Avenue Road extension, which is, there's been if you want to call it a paper road, the right-of-way and the parcels have been laid out since the early 1900s. And for some reason, the road dead end just at, well, you might just pass Revere Road. But the maps and the parcels laid it out all the way to Andrews Road and then completed that grid so that Andrews went around. So there's discussion about having that road built. The mayor and city council will be holding a listening session on March 19th at 6:30 here in council chambers to listen to neighbors about that project. And so we just wanted to be sure that we made mention of that tonight so that you're aware of that activity. So again, this is just the balance of the timeline. So there's lots of work going on, and the zoning, I think we've already talked about this, sorry. This is a lot of the engagement that we want to have going on, and there'll be some story mapping online, ways that we can keep the public informed of how we're moving this project going forward. And that's really the balance of what I had to say. Well, I guess not. There's still infill housing. Sorry, the infill housing is going on. So they've issued requests for proposals from different people interested in that. And so we'll be hearing more of that as we go on. The CIC just met prior to us, so they're getting organized and we'll be moving forward. And we're excited to see how that helps us do some more development in infill housing. And then the economic development update, there's some small business grants that have been going on. They're working on a sign grant program to help merchants replace their sign, and that should be coming out soon. The storefront program is active, and they continue to work with different businesses and encourage people to consider that as a resource if they need some assistance. And then this just outlines a few of the new activities that were there at the beginning of the year. So I think that is it. So I know I did that very quickly. All of that will, of course, in detail be reviewed to you as individual projects and activities come forward, but we're happy to try to answer any questions if you have something.
Bob, did I hear you have a question?
Yeah, you just wanted to say, like I probably mentioned this before, I hope not, but you know, in my previous life, I wrote whole chapters on sign regulations, also on landscape regulations. I also helped to administer those things, mainly in the city of Cleveland for a long time. So any help that I can give to the staff that doesn't conflict with my role here, and I would have to go with the law department's view on that, I'd be happy to do that.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Question. Is there ever any discussion during the public arts program discussion about citywide public art that would go beyond a specific neighborhood?
So I think that's the intent with there's art plans already looked at for like the Cedar Lee area, the Cedar Fairmont District, and so now we're looking at Noble Road and Taylor Road. So that's the intention is to look at this more universally. And I do believe that there was just a new arts council formed. So sorry, I can't say too much about that because I will step in something that I shouldn't, because I don't have my facts straight in my head.
I don't know. Can I just expound on that? I was actually thinking about like one public art project that encompassed this whole city.
And I think that could be a possibility with the new arts commission board that's being formed.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, something that, you know, had multiple sites, but it's the same installation. I don't know. It just seemed like it could be a way to bring the city together or spur interest outside your specific neighborhood.
Sure.
Anyone else? I'll say, you know, for being the home of the arts, the more the better.
I'm sure that everyone's aware of this, but normally one of the things that I see a lot in my day-to-day job is that a lot of folks will do a public arts plan in a wayfinding plan, because many times public art and wayfinding go hand in hand together. Murals and whatnot can act as a form of wayfinding. So I just want to make sure that that's you know, something
And that's part of why we engaged with Land Studio and want to talk especially about gateways, because we think it could be more than just a sign, and it can definitely, and depending on where we are in the locations, there's the opportunity for public art or significant landscaping or some other, something beyond just a sign. So yes.
Very cool. Fantastic.
Just one quick thing, and something I know you already know, but as we're having public meetings, just as much outreach as we can do and notices, make sure that we are getting input of neighbors. So on the front end of these things, so that we don't have this room filled or with people saying, I didn't know. Just, again, I know you all know this and are active in doing this, but I just extra emphasis on the front end, public noticing, like making sure people are aware of meetings, I think is very important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was thinking about the same thing, Ken, when, you know, people were saying that we didn't get noticed the first time. For this meeting, how far down the block do we go in this case? Does everybody from end to end on Essex?
Typically, no, because that's not what the zoning code calls out.
Right.
So we can have our zoning code experts, actually, that is one of the things we're having them look at, is noticing and the distances and what's appropriate and not appropriate. It gets a little challenging because you have to be careful that you're not, I mean, you need to treat all applicants the same. And I can't, when it's a really large project, it makes sense that it's going to have a much greater impact. So,
No, it's a good point. It's understandable because somebody further west on Essex, for example, might feel left out when the code's only saying it goes one block or to the next intersection.
Correct. You should know, though, that everybody that sent in an email or came last month was obviously get added to the notice also.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Jessica.
I was just going to add that in some jurisdictions, you know, the public sign posted on the property, you know, this is undergoing zoning review, can be helpful because then it's literally shown in public for those who interact with that space.
And we'll probably get an opportunity to interject that when we get the consultant's report of recommendations. Question for you, Karen. How's our agenda looking for April? Brooke?
We have one application that came from, it's called, I think, Green Buds or The Forest. It's a dispensary on Lee Road. They're coming for a drive-through conditional use permit, and that's contingent upon them receiving a variance the night
I'm
before.
sorry, I didn't quite hear what you
It's
said.
a dispensary on Lee Road called The
Dispensary-
Forest.
For marijuana?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Drive-through.
Yeah, the drive-throughs are conditionally permitted. Is it Lee and Tulloch,
By the hardware store.
I believe? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I believe that there's another, isn't there also another auto use that changed ownership?
Yeah,
That
they
came
haven't
in?
applied yet.
Oh, I thought they had applied. Sorry, they're only talking to us.
Okay.
That would be the only case.
That's the only thing so far?
Yes.
Any other updates on any projects or people that we should be aware of?
The high school is seeking a designation to become a landmark, so that would come to you guys as well if everything is submitted on time.
Kind of surprised it isn't.
Yeah. Especially since they took down the non-conforming piece.
Yeah, they
exposed the
yeah.
conforming piece. Yeah.
Yeah, marvelous project.
Yeah.
Okay, if there are no other further comments or anything anybody wants to raise, I think we're going to adjourn at 8:20.